I think that happened for real. It just sort of stopped playing. So hi everybody, welcome to Narrative Live on a Wednesday. I have no idea why it stopped playing, but it's good to be with you on what has been an incredibly busy news day. Oh my gosh, it does not stop, the news, and it's been breaking all the way up to news time. We've got lots of good information tonight. Hello, Eric Garland. It's so good to be with you again. How is your day?
My day was wonderful. Thank you, Zev. It's an intense one. I mean, there's a lot going on, right?
I know. It takes me like a few minutes just before the start of the show just to like, okay, calm down, relax. It's okay. The news just exists. You don't have to panic about it. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be fine.
Plus, I mean, how do you compose the tweet? How do you compose the tweet about Trump's people apparently planned the militias to have us shot if we left our homes after curfew after they stole the election?
I had to listen to that like 4 times, and I transcribed it personally because I was like, I can't believe the machine put that out, and it said like, he said that he would shoot people, and I had to listen like 4 times. This guy Justin Sullivan, who's an associate of Roger Stone, talks about a curfew where if you don't comply with the curfew, they will shoot you without any due process, rule of law, or anything like that. We will have a lot of that tape coming up, and it's a lot of great information you and I've been digging up. It's going to be a fascinating continuation of what we did last Friday, which was the tunnel show, where we revealed the possibility that Donald Trump may have met some of his collaborators in a tunnel under the White House, or at least under the White House and the Treasury. So we'll continue on that. Lots more information on that, plus a look back at how they evolved this whole idea of trying to get the Insurrection Act. So there's plenty of that coming up. We should do the news first of all, though, and we'll start with what we like to call the starting block. And the big news today was the final arrest after 30 hours of we were laughing before the show and I was about to do it. Frank James, who's the suspect in the Brooklyn terror attack, which happened yesterday. The subway in Brooklyn was obviously the scene of a horrific shooting and a smoke attack. 10 people were shot, but as many as 33 shots were fired in the subway before Frank James was able to make a getaway. He was finally apprehended today. He did so, interestingly enough, he was apprehended after calling himself in as a tip. He was in the McDonald's in the East Village, and because I guess he had nowhere else to go, felt maybe the world was becoming smaller and smaller for him, as they like to say in police circles. Frank James actually called himself in as a tip, according to the AP. Frank James called police to tell them where he was and to come and get him, says the Associated Press. During a news conference, police officials said that they got a tip saying the suspect was at a McDonald's in the East Village, but they didn't say that he called himself in. So that's interesting. It is also interesting that this man has an interesting record of not liking the mayor, not liking the subway system as well in New York City. According to the indictment that was released, or statement relating to the indictment that was released earlier on today, the Department of Justice says in videos he posted publicly on YouTube before the attack, James made various statements about the New York City subway system. Among other things, James addressed statements to New York City's mayor. What are you doing, brother? What's happening with the homeless situation? And every car I went into was loaded with homeless people. It was so bad I couldn't even stand. James also made statements in sum and substance about various conspiracy theories, including that, and so the message to me is, I should have gotten a gun and just started shooting mother effers. That is, that seems like at least a good idea of what might be his motive. I mean, we don't know exactly his motive, but he certainly seems to have been aggrieved in some ways by the city's homeless people, the system, and the mayor. So maybe that's what he was doing. I mean, the guy obviously may not be as stable as one would want. He's got a history of being involved with the police. They've been aware of him. He's been in a transient home himself. Any number of things could have happened. But that manhunt surely is great. It's finished now. Any thoughts on that?
Well, Eric? I mean, amazing. I mean, I was going to say, amazing work by the New York Police Department, by the FBI, by all relevant agencies that helped out with this. This could have been a super complex. They're all super complex situations when you get something like this. Perhaps made easier because the suspect called a tip-in on himself. That's probably that's statistically unlikely,
But
but
they only would have done that because his world was getting smaller. I mean, they literally used that expression. I remember that from my world in local news over there. They had him on every TV screen in New York City, and everyone was looking out for this guy, and everyone knew everything about him. They knew he had a U-Haul. They knew what he was wearing. There was just a lot of information. It gets really hard. I mean, I know they say it's easy to hide in New York City, but once you've got 9 million people aware of what you look like, looking out for you, they'll find you. I mean, so even if he's sitting at the McDonald's, surely people must have realized, that's the guy. We should probably do something about that. And he probably thought he's got nowhere else to go. Where else do you go? He's stuck in the middle of Manhattan. You're surrounded by NYPD. So I agree with you. I think the cops did a great job.
That was, there was a heavy populated area. I actually spoke with friends in the New York metropolitan area. Some have kids who go to school near there. And so it was very personal. I mean, it's always personal, in something like that. I don't know. I suppose it's somewhat more comforting to know that he was just crazy, potentially, because that's a very strong reaction to poor public transit. Yeah. I mean, we all have our issues on the bus, or wishing the tram, trolley, or subway cars were nicer or less crowded. But extended magazine pistols and I mean, it was a little extreme. So, but we're very lucky to have people in law enforcement and national security who can lock that up within 24 hours so that people can not only go on with their daily lives, but also know that if somebody does snap in such a way and get that violent, that situation can not only be, rectified and somebody entered into the federal law enforcement and justice system, but their face put up all over, and hopefully other people who are unhappy with public transit will realize that their complaint will not last very long.
It's interesting. We did this yesterday. When we got on the air by 7:00 yesterday evening, the police had done so much great work in terms of identifying the fact that he had got onto the R train across the way from the N train, had probably gotten off on 25th Street. That is still what they think happened. They also were able to track the U-Haul vehicle based on the credit card they found on the train, and following up on what he bought with that credit card. So they were able to track that U-Haul vehicle. They're also able to track the fact that he got onto a subway station near that U-Haul vehicle, which is what we reported yesterday. So they did that within 10 hours. And the gun, they were able to track that back, plus a lot of other information. And that's a lot of detective work going on there. That's when they finally called him a person of interest, and then later on a suspect. So it certainly was great police work, as the NYPD always does. When I was in local news there, those guys are fantastic in the time of a crisis like you've never seen before, and you're always glad to see them at a time of crisis. Actually, you're always glad to see them, but at a time of crisis, you're always glad. They make you feel really, really safe.
Look, there's something about New Yorkers, right? The beautiful thing and equally ugly thing about living in New York City is you've seen everything once, right? So it's pretty hard to shock a New York cop for the most part. So they're gonna be like, this guy, Jesus, okay, get that guy in here,
Yeah. Yeah, they have a tough job too. I mean, that's a tough city to run. Hey, we better move on because there's so much other news. It was interesting today as well that Mr. Joe Biden was using the word genocide regarding Mr. Putin's actions in Ukraine. This is not unusual. This is the second time he's probably done it, and we feel that he's probably right. I mean, I certainly feel like it's hard to say anything else. It does not mean the U.S. policy to Ukraine has yet changed into officially genocide. But
I would may I dork out here?
Dork out away.
And a salute to the George Washington University Elliott School of International Affairs, where I got my master's degree. In normal statecraft, which did get a little bit suspended during the Trump years, you can be forgiven for thinking, how could this be true? But before you had these lunatics with their lunatic Twitter accounts blasting curfew out at the world every morning and whatever else, it was assumed that the statement by a statement by a president or other type of head of state was the official policy of that country. So when whoever the man or woman in charge was made a statement, that reflected the rest of at least the executive branch of that government's statement. Of course, everybody's got different forms of government, but most of the major powers have usually some executive, some form of executive branch. It might be a monarchy, it might be an elected head, and then also a legislative parliament type thing. We've had the same forms of government for 2,000 years. A king, a wise council, and democracy. Anyhow, until Trump, it was thought that when the president says something and changes the words that person uses, that represents the policy of the nation. So I'm going to assume that we've sort of gone back a little bit, to normal, in that when President Biden says something, that reflects the policy direction of the country, which is terrible news for Vladimir Putin and good news for Ukraine and the rest of the world, that America is not going to sit by while war crimes are committed. And now he stepped that up, because war crimes, as we said on last night's show, can be here or there. And genocide is systemic. It is supported by an entire regime, and you've got to take that regime out. So he is calling for a pretty big bar fight.
I will add that, have you heard the term strategic confusion? I've heard it used in terms of this. So this is the government of the United States also saying, exactly, mine too. But, what they're trying to say is, we think it's genocide, sure, but we still want to keep an open channel to you in case we need to talk to you about whatever. So officially, we're still going to not say it's genocide. But, the president of the United States says, you're a genocidal murderer, but it's not official, guys. You can still talk to us about stuff. Plus, there's a challenge with the ICC because we're not a signatory to the ICC. So we can't really refer things over there without being a signatory. However, I'm sure they'll figure that out. Look, what's going on there is horrific, and I hope he's getting a lot of these messages clearly. I mean, not only is he being compared to, the likes of Hitler and Stalin, which maybe he'd aspire to, but, no one wants to aspire towards being this guy, Mr. Putin Hitler, or even this guy in a Ukrainian cartoon recently. I mean, this is not something that he's probably looking forward to, and he is becoming that person in history. And he's also still, navigating a war here, which is going to be very, very ugly. So to that regard, the Biden administration today stepped up with $800 million worth of new military assistance to Ukraine, including, you'll see in this list, is something called a helicopter, which we had not given them before. But now they've got helicopters, which is about, we're inching closer and closer to those fighter jets. This time we've given them helicopters. But someone did the math on this. We've given about $2.5 billion in military aid to Ukraine since the start of this thing. The normal military budget in Ukraine for a good year is $4 billion. So we are more than doing our part in Ukraine. And if anyone says otherwise, you're not paying attention. So pay attention.
Thank you.
After this break, we will come back. We've got to talk about this incredible story, Justin Sullivan, who's an associate of Roger Stone, and everything he has been up to, and the audio tape that we have. We're going to listen to it in great detail of everything he was doing. I mean, it's kind of stunning what he admits on tape to a bunch of anti-vaxxers on December 30th, a week before the insurrection. So that's coming up. Plus, I want to remind everyone that because we love you here at Narrative, if you are a patron of Narrative, you now have one of these. You have a red hotline, which means you can at any time interrupt us on the show by writing us a message or asking a question. We won't take it immediately, but I'll see it flash up in front of me right next to me on my chat module here. And you can only use that if you go to narrative.org/TV. That's narrative.org/TV. But you have to be a patron to use this red hotline. If we're on to Eric or me, that's how you find us. Write us a message. But please, we're talking about actual comments related to the show. You can send us other things as well, I guess, but it would be helpful if it was actually further the content of the show. So feel free to use it right now. Go to narrative.org/TV. Write a message to us. We'll flash it up on the screen. And thank you very much to the folks at Patreon and all our patrons, Patreon, and all our patrons for providing us all the funding that we need. We don't have enough, but at least we have what you've given us, which is great to keep all our narrative content alive. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back after this with some news about our big sponsor for tonight's show, which is AG1 Athletic Greens. We'll be right back with that. When others called it a hoax, we didn't waver. When they covered up and lied for Trump and others, we stuck to the facts. Through COVID, corruption, and a coup, to a war in Ukraine. At Narrative, we've been telling you the truth about Putin and Xi since 2016. Narrative, it's where truth lives. Hey, here we go. Do you like my voice over there? It's very, very deep. It seems that every day there's a new health threat. And in fact, just today they were telling us that the mask mandate is back on for another few weeks if you're traveling. So one of the best ways you can reclaim your immune system is eating healthy. But how do you get rid of, or how do you get all the vitamins and nutrients you need in a convenient, affordable way? That's why I'm currently doing a 30-day self-imposed Athletic Greens Challenge. The plan is simple. You take the AG1 supplement throughout April, at least I take it, and I track all my increases in energy levels, overall well-being, see if my immune system feels better. Today is day 10. It's just one scoop in a cup every day. It can put in water or anything else you want to mix it with. And it's kind of amazing because you don't have to take any other vitamins, no other pills, no other supplements. It's got everything you need in one of these AG1 sachets that you put in mixed with water, and it tastes pretty good. A lot of people have a lot of concern around how AG1 tastes or how green drinks taste in general. AG1 tastes really good. It's a kind of a sweet taste. It's very refreshing, really good to drink. So I highly recommend it. Plus, 10 days in, I should say, I've noticed a real boost in my energy levels. My memory is better. I feel much healthier. AG1 is engineered to provide all the right nutrients into just the right time. Whether you want increased energy or improved muscle recovery, they got it covered. And because they care about your wallet too, AG1 will only cost you around $3 a day, and there aren't any hidden fees. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/narrative. That's athleticgreens.com/narrative, the way we spell narrative, NARATIV. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/narrative to take ownership of your health and pick the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Athletic Greens, and that's our sponsor for today. Thank you very much for Athletic Greens for being here. We support you as much as you support us. Thank you so much. All right, we're back with Eric.
I want to continue the pitch there.
Yeah.
You need immune and nutritional support to help deal with the stress of what we report on Narrative.
You know what? It's actually really true.
So
and
athleticgreens.com/narrative.
Because I have a really hard time getting all the greens that I need and all the nutrients because I tend to eat while I'm working, and I'm working so much that I just kind of just eat my food and I forget all the healthy stuff. I'll grab a pizza or whatever it is just because it's just easier to eat. And the greens, I think you kind of need. And you need all those things in those that you get from greens and all the vitamins and other stuff they have in AG1. Because I have been just a lot more productive and I had a lot more energy since I started taking it 10 days ago. So I'm really not just not me just endorsing something. I totally, this is a real experience, and this is me. I'm telling you what I feel about this product. So I highly recommend it.
Self-care. Brought to you by Narrative.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You got a nice voice for reading ads. Maybe you should do that.
Maybe.
We could do that next time. All right. So here's let's recap where we left the show last Friday. We had such an amazing show on Friday because we were having this like brainstorm live on the air, basically, but all the possibilities that could be related to this tunnel that we knew everyone sort of has known this tunnel existed, but this notion that the people at the Wilbur Hotel, which were coordinating the January 6th insurrection from a political and legal perspective, may have actually been able to get in contact with the president himself if he met them in the little war room that they have under the White House, which connects the White House East Room, or the East Wing, sorry, to the Treasury Department. So it was a fascinating show, don't you think, Eric? I mean, I learned a lot in that broadcast.
I learned a lot too. I learned a lot researching it, and yeah.
So I want to show you a couple of things that I learned since then. we showed you the other day. So these are all obviously my really bad graphics on top of this very nice photo that they've provided us from Google. But if you look at the White House, I can't point to it, unfortunately, but you can see the White House obviously there. It's this green or light green box represents the tunnel. We had referred to it as the tunnel built by Ronald Reagan that connects the West Wing to the East Wing. And at that point, all I knew about it was that it was actually just a connection between those two wings. And it turns out that even on the White House Gov website, they actually say that this is designed to be the tunnel that links the Oval Office to the War Room, or what was the name of the War Room again? The operational...
Presidential Emergency Operations Center.
That thing. Does that mean anything?
Or the bunker.
The bunker. Okay. Basically the bunker. So this green tunnel does actually function in exactly the way we had suspected it would, which is to take people to the bunker. The bunker is probably in this red area-ish. I don't know exactly where, and I don't really need to know where, but let's say it's somewhere in this red area. And then this yellow tunnel is actually underneath the Treasury. So the red bunker is actually the tunnel to the Treasury, we feel like, or at least a larger part of the tunnel to the Treasury is in this bunker. Or these operation centers in the bunker, I should say. So over here at the Wilbur, which is the blue hotel, right, which is the blue square above this hotel, the Wilbur is where Roger Stone, Rudy Giuliani, and many, many other top dignitaries stayed during the January 6th uprising. It seems to me that this has been known to people a long time. I had to go learn about it, but there's a tunnel under the Wilbur as well that takes you from one side of the hotel to the other side. Willard. I'm sorry. Why do I always call it the Wilbur? I don't know. I just have it stuck in my head. Like
it's also nice sounding, but it's the Willard.
The Willard Hotel. Get all the facts straight, Shalev. Come on. So at the Willard Hotel over here, there is a tunnel that takes you all the way from Pennsylvania Avenue, which is the front of it, to whatever's at the back here, and
F Street. Because see that little oval way at the right edge of the screen there, on the building to the top. You go one. Okay, so you get your dotted blue line. Take it all the way to the edge of the screen. That was the headquarters of my company, Competitive Futures, for many years in Washington, D.C. So this is my hood.
You know exactly your way around here.
Where, by the way, I shared office space. They were in the office over with a guy named Chad Wolf, who worked for a Democratic lobbying firm. Chad Wolf was acting secretary of DHS on January 6th, and we used to share the same water fountain. DC is a small town.
Well, I mean, not only that, I mean, the Willard is one of these places that I don't know, that President Grant used to go and get drunk over there. That's apparently how they came up with the term lobbyist, because he used to get drunk in the lobby and people used to hit him up there.
They would hang out at the lobby of the Willard,
Yeah, so it's, there's another hotel, by the way, the Washingtonian. I think it's called the Washingtonian. I've stayed in that hotel right next to it. However, I don't think it's got the tunnel. And more importantly, it doesn't have the very, very like sort of esteemed spy history that the Willard has. I didn't know that about the Willard either. It has a long history of being a home to spooks. So this yellow line here,
everybody meets there. So if you go in and you get a martini at the bar and you just look around, it's just a hot mess in there. It's good.
You're spying, basically. You walk in there, you're spying.
Or you're getting drunk. I mean, you have options.
Spying and drinking, multitasking. Now, you might be asking what the yellow section is here. There is, under the Treasury, there is actually a myriad of tunnels, believe it or not just the ones we can see or are known. There are many, many others which are unknown. This yellow one is one of the known ones, and actually is a entrance into the White House proper that exists off campus. And you can look it up. All the details are out there in the web somewhere. But it's interesting to me that it goes all the way down this street. I don't even know what that is. But then it connects into the White House under the Treasury.
That street, that's going to be 15th.
15th Street. So I'm going to just surmise, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but it seems like it's quite possible that the tunnel leading into the end of Willard, the Willard Hotel on F Street, might maybe connect to this other tunnel or these other tunnel networks that exist underneath the Treasury, and maybe you wouldn't even have to go above ground to get into the Treasury. You could probably, if you knew your way, if you knew the right passcode or the right knock on the door, you might be able to find your way all the way from the Willard to the Treasury. Just maybe.
Okay, so
that's assumption. That's an assumption.
Okay, so some logistical reality about Washington D.C. Anybody who lives in D.C., works in D.C., knows what I'm talking about. Parking there is insane.
Right.
And so something like the White House, where when you got to get there, you got to get there. There's only a few dignitary, a few of the top staff that are going to have like a driver every morning that picks them up and takes them in. That's going to be like chief of staff, national security, top of the White House counsel, top people that get their own car. Otherwise, you got to drive in like every other schmuck. So the traffic in DC is gnarly. But you still need to get to work, with as much logistical facility as possible. So the existence of these tunnels makes sense that you're going to have parking somewhere else, because parking's a bear. Once you've lived there for 2-3 years, you could parallel park, an 18-wheeler truck into a bag of chips. I mean, you can do anything, but you're talking about, there's a lot of people who work in and out of these complexes, and they need to get in. So the underground tunnels make a lot of sense. The blue ones there, that's where you're going to have some lesser dignitaries. Like, let's say you're Prime Minister of the United Kingdom or President of France. You might stay at Blair House, which would be up to the upper left.
Yeah, the other side. It can't get us there, unfortunately, but it's on the other
side. You can't. Don't move anything. But yeah, just near. It's really close to the White House, or the Hay Adams Hotel. A lot of people stay at the Willard, and you'd probably want a way to get over to those federal buildings, easily. So
look, I mean, there's a lot of very important people who would have to get into the Treasury, even in an emergency. I mean, imagine you're in the middle of a war or something like that. You need to get money in and out of the Treasury. That's where they used to keep all the money. I mean, there's a lot of things that you need in the Treasury, and not to mention access to the president, that you can imagine that the tunnel system under this is quite sophisticated and probably can lead you to a lot of different places in order for you to do what you needed to do, including park a car or move a dignitary inside or get money out to the masses or whatever it is you needed. It makes sense that under there's a Treasury, a lot of tunnels. They actually used to have a money laundry in there. They used to wash the money in the Treasury. So they had a literal laundromat, the money laundromat there. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. They just let us have the dirty money, I guess. So that's the tunnel system. You're caught up to speed about what we've learned since that day, but it certainly seems like you could probably get around pretty easily from the West Wing all the way into the Willard Hotel and vice versa without anybody really knowing, because you're in your own secret passageways. How fun is that?
So let's say you were a bunch of low rent mobsters in your last half cup of gasoline, and you're skidding into prison, and you're just looking to overthrow the United States government and all of Western democracy and set all of civilization back prior to the Renaissance. And you're over at the Willard Hotel, where you probably shouldn't be. You're not even fit for there. And you needed to work with the White House. Both of these, let's say the White House was full of foreign agent scum and other just low rent criminals that need to be, interred somewhere. You could all work together on the same day in this little area, hypothetically, on January 6th, 2021.
You could. And now there are lots of questions here coming online, and I knew I was going to get these. I'm going to just Diggs Retro is saying, so you're saying that there's an entrance from a private hotel to our most secure presidential war room and national treasury? I am saying that there could be. I do not know that there is one. I do know that this yellow track here that I've lined up is an actual tunnel that exits in a laneway in DC, and it's the secret exit for, not so secret obviously, exit off campus for people who wanted to get out of the White House in, say, an emergency or what have you, if the president needed to get in that emergency. It's staffed with a Secret Service guy. It's a real entranceway to the White House, and it's some way away. It's a couple of blocks away.
The Presidential Emergency Operations Center is staffed, I believe, 24/7 by Department of Defense employees and Secret Service. So what we're talking about is there subterranean physical communication between these areas, which, by the way, like I pointed out in the last show, is 80 yards. So if you had to come up to 15th Street, wait for the little white guy to turn white and run across the street, you're still talking like 30 seconds, a minute. These are the ways that people would get around to different places without being within camera range of bystanders. And I think that's our point. I doubt that the war room is available to, like everybody that stays at the Willard, who's going to go to the exercise room or the bar or the emergency briefing room in case there's a nuclear strike. That I don't think any of that exists. But this is about, can you get on that day, were there people in the scumbag Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Kerik, Kayleigh, Steve Bannon room over on the blue side, and the White House?
Yeah.
Because we know the people over in blue, Roger Stone and all them, that they were involved with the attempt to murder elected officials. The question is, did the blue square work with the teal square?
Yeah.
Using the yellow square.
Yeah, exactly. But it's I mean, I'll just say we'll probably never know for sure, but because that might be a secret, but it certainly is interesting that is that there's a tunnel that is all the way underneath the Willard. That made me think, well, where does that tunnel go to? Normally you build tunnels to connect one place to another. You don't just build a tunnel, that has a dead ends. So I that's why I assumed that it would connect. And it's an assumption, but let's say it's possible that you could get from there to the White House. Also, you got to remember, again, think about this in a war situation where you don't necessarily want people who are important to be wandering around above street level. If you need to get people from place to place, you need tunnels to get them. And there's probably a lot more tunnels in DC than we are aware of, for good reason. So that's that part. But you mentioned Roger Stone, and, no matter where you look at in the story with Jan 6, Roger Stone comes up again and again and again because he's just that kind of dude. It seems to me that he was so involved in everything that went on that day that it's becoming, treasonous if it wasn't already. Now, Jason Sullivan is someone I'd not known very well before until just the other day when his tape popped up, and it's a tape of him talking to anti-vaxxers on December the 31st, a week before the insurrection, describing what was going to happen during the insurrection and after. And it includes threats to shoot the public if they ignore the curfew.
After.
Yeah, and after. So we're going to be playing some of that. But you've learned a little bit about Mr. Sullivan as well, about what kind of guy he is politically.
Well, I mean, I think he works with Roger Stone, and there's really nothing more to say about that. But it was very interesting to look up the super PAC that they had together. I believe in was it for the I think it was for the 2016 election. And man, there are some connections there in their super PAC. So I forget,
we'll do that in a bit, because I actually don't have the picture that I thought I had of the guy. So I'll pull it up in a second, and then we'll get to who that is. I know I was trying to do it, but I just I don't have it. So it is interesting that they get funded by unique individuals that are well known.
That are well known.
Yeah, that are very well known. So that's interesting. Involves some celebrities as well. I want to listen to some of this guy's tape. I mean, we are talking about someone who's full of bravado. He apparently sounds, he claims to be himself, one of these messenger people who's able to create a message on behalf of the president or whichever other political party is giving him the money. In other words, he's the kind of guy who whips up, who gaslights people is probably the better way to describe him. He's able to create enough leverage, as he calls it, to create events and let them happen. So we're going to listen to this. It's a 5-minute tape, but we're going to listen to it in different sections. This is the first section. We listened to some of it yesterday, but I just want to listen to it again because, boy, is it interesting. This is Jason Sullivan on tape as he's talking to this group of anti-vaxxers on December the 31st.
He's going to do something, and it's going to be to where people are actually going to be arrested. And I know you've been hearing that for a long time, but it will happen.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Because I have to cut myself off pretty soon. Is he going to declare an insurrection or martial law?
There very well may be some limited form of martial law. I don't know that it's the Insurrection Act. Okay, because it's been deemed unconstitutional. There's a lot of argument about that, but who knows? President Trump does what President Trump wants to do. Okay, so people can advise him all they want so their face turns blue. At the end of the day, he's his own man. He's going to call his own shots. So he very well may call it an Insurrection Act, but there may be, I foresee a limited form of martial law, and I don't see any other way around it. Because, first off, it's not going to allow invited to this call, to take place. It's not going to happen. Biden will never be in that White House. That's my promise to each and every one of you. Okay?
Joe Biden will never be in that White House. That's my promise to each and every one of you. Okay. Well, you were wrong. So that's good. Not as good as you think you are, Mr.
That's
Sullivan.
good.
But the other stuff is terrifying because he openly is talking about a plan by the president to institute martial law, limited form of martial law, whatever that might mean, and also use the Insurrection Act. I mean, those two are very significant things that, he says that Trump is his own man. He makes calls his own shots, which means he heard this from the president in all likelihood that this is what he wanted to do. Boy, that's hard to run away from. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's very damning, very, very damning.
Yeah, it gets pretty stark after a while. There's so much complexity to this, but when you arrive at the final terminus point here, is like, oh, that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and no matter which way you look at it, no matter how you look at this thing, this is what they were planning to do. They were planning to overthrow the duly elected government that the American people had elected and install themselves into another term. I mean, or longer.
Longer.
Yeah, there's no way to really
Remember
see it differently.
Years ago, Trump used the Twitter platform to troll everybody with Trump 2020, Trump 2024. Remember, there was like a GIF that had a bunch of these Trump campaign signs, and it almost suggested like the Trump family would be in power for 50 years, like it was Papa and Baby Doc Duvalier in Haiti or something. So it was like 2024, 2028. 2032.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Look, it's really terrifying. I mean, we all suspected this was what they were going to try and do, but the fact that they actually did try and do it, and then the fact that there's still an entity of political power in the United States that may run again, I mean, and the GOP hasn't really changed very much, then, we have not.
Oh, and they're
exited.
But here in Missouri, there are local politicians who are sucking up to saying how close they are to Trump still. So I just, I hope all the voters here in Missouri get to hear what this magnificent paragon of democracy was really about.
But maybe they don't care. Maybe they're supportive. Maybe the idea is that, they've convinced them all that this is necessary, or that there's so much election fraud going on that maybe they believe that Donald Trump has been ripped off and not won an election legal. It was lost the election illegally.
Yeah, we got to play the part of the tape where they talk about shooting us if we leave our houses.
Yeah, let's do that next.
Pulling this off.
So the other thing that Jason Sullivan does in this tape, which I find kind of fascinating, is he describes the way they do things. And we'll get to that in a second about how they're able to gaslight a population in order to create enough of a fire for Donald Trump to take action on some things, which is interesting in light of the BLM violence and all the other violence that we had in leading up to that election. But let's listen to Jason Sullivan as he describes to us now what he will describe as leverage and what he hopes is going to happen. This might be the wrong clip. Let me just make sure. I think I might have the wrong one. Here we go. And how he expects the event to go down on January the 6th. So let's listen to what this looks like.
It's not going to happen. Biden will never be in that White House. That's my promise to each and every one of you. Okay? So when that happens, and that becomes realization, of course, Soros and group of minions and all their folks in the Black Lives Matters groups and the Antifa groups, of course, they're going to want to start to defend. What happened, where they start burning down cities with a prelude, okay? And so, of course, they have a plan to descend on cities and start burning cities down again. We know that. We know their entire playbook, okay? So do you think we're going to allow that to happen? No. There will be a limited form of martial law, which would, at that point, there's no more playing games. We're telling you, you have a curfew, and you got to abide by it. Otherwise, you're going to get shot in the rear end, okay? And they may be real bullets. Who knows, okay? But he's not going to allow them to descend on all the cities and burn all of our cities down, for one. And the main reason for that is because if he did allow them to do that, our militia would step up and meet them with great force, and we would therefore find ourselves in a civil war. There's no question about that. Does anybody doubt that?
Nope.
Oh, no.
That's what I'm afraid of.
We're down here in the we're down here in the South. Trust me, everybody's ready.
Yeah, I've been there. I mean, I've got good friends in Tennessee. They got 120 acres. They're built. They're ready for World War III. I mean, everything. And that's my fallback, actually. Okay. Yeah. So, but I don't see it happening because this president has principles, and he stands on those principles. and he will not break them for anyone. And so they picked on the wrong president. That's all I can tell you. The deep state thinks that they control everything, and they practically do, but they picked on the wrong president in this case. Okay? So I encourage everybody to not panic, not worry too much. Apologize for that background noise. I encourage everybody not to panic, for one. And anybody here that's been in the military, God bless you, and again, thank you for your service. And anybody in the military would know the first people to panic on the battlefield are the first people to not make it. Okay, so I encourage you more than anything not to panic. And I understand everybody's scared. Okay, and I'm constantly talking people off the ledge every single day, and just like I'm sure all of you are as well.
Yeah, we're all scared because of what you're doing, Mr. Sullivan. I mean, let's talk about that one comment in particular, which just stands out. You know, you're either going to comply with our curfew, or we're going to
telling you have a curfew, and if you don't abide by it, you're going to be shot in the rear end. You know, and it may be real bullets.
Yeah,
that was. And let's be real clear with the audience here. That was after they stopped the vote count and the certification of the election, possibly killing Nancy Pelosi or other elected, or Mike Pence or other elected officials.
Yeah.
And after the quote quick reaction forces of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, after that, there were going to be militias, check this, in multiple cities, according to Roger Stone's associate here, multiple cities. And there was going to be a curfew imposed outside of the law and the Constitution of the United States and the laws we currently live under. These people were going to impose a physical curfew on American citizens, and their intention was if we did not obey them physically to stay in our homes, they would murder us. I want everyone to understand this. Mm-hmm. This was their intention. Mm-hmm. They win the election no matter what you voted, no matter what the count said, no matter what math says, no matter what science says. And when it's done, you shut up and you stay in your house, or we shoot you in the face, we shoot your children, and you shut the fuck up. That is what the Republican Party stood up for in 2016 and on through today, and that is what they need to pay for legally.
Eric, you're 100% right. What they what they say or saying there is that they were going to impose martial law. They were going to get the entire National Guard deployed, which is not really what they're meant to be used for, but they were going to be deployed under the martial law statute that they were going to impose. And then they were going to impose a curfew on Americans for being out later than they should be. And if you didn't listen to their curfew, he is saying there that they would shoot you if you didn't listen. And they may be real bullets, whatever they would be otherwise. I mean, it's...
right. They're not even talking about that. That's a cover for what they were really planning, which was, World War III / Civil War here, which is they use, irregular militias, because guess what? There's a bunch of Democratic governors that have control of these National Guards, right? And they wouldn't necessarily go along with that. We don't have a national military defense force within the boundaries of the United States because of the act of posse comitatus. We don't have that. We have local police forces. We have state police. We have county sheriffs. We have the rule of law all over there. And we have a military that faces outward. We have intelligence services that face outward, and very few that are watched very closely that might face inward in the case of specific threats. And what they're talking about, something Insurrection Act. I mean, that's a thin veil of we're going to bring our gunses out, our small, and who knows how this would have actually gone. But this was their dream, and they threatened it in 2016, and they've been talking about it as this is why we need unlimited small arms in the United States, Second Amendment, something, shoot the government. But they're revealing what they really wanted to do.
They are absolutely revealing
us.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to shoot us if we didn't agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're talking about. They're not talking about, and if the Democratic Party says that they're not going to leave their seat of power, or we say this guy won the Senate race and he's the one who should enter the door. They're talking about coming to to your door, Zeb, my door. Well, you're in Canada, but hey,
Who knows?
they probably
they
probably would have annexed Canada.
You know what's the thing?
They may not know that Canada isn't a state. Who knows? But these guys are talking about going from house to house, and if I'm out after 9 o'clock, and they said whoever they is, who is they? A guy with a shotgun next to me? Somebody with an AR-15 and a bump stock who says, "Hey, Eric, I'm the local representative of Donald Trump." Really, he's just some psychopath. They're talking now. We're not talking. This is not even a military coup. A military coup is when there's like the political situation falls apart, and sometimes that's because of foreign powers that step in. We're talking, and then the last resort is the military, and they're like, "All right, guys, post up here, and here. Tell everybody to go in their house." It's because the political system has fallen apart, and the military sometimes does a coup and goes, "All right, we're going to set up the next set of elections."
Yeah.
Right? That's not what this would have been. This would have been this was a peaceful land, in most ways, and we just had an orderly election, although lots of technical difficulties, and the vote by mail all messed up and all that. But we all went out, and there weren't mass murders or warlords fighting as we were trying to vote. It's just the vote didn't come out the way some people wanted, and they weren't even going to call out the Pentagon. They're talking about militias, just average people.
I think the National Guard first. I think they were talking about the National Guard, but yes, militias as well. But I think the National Guard was their initial. What they're saying here in this audio tape is what they're saying is they're going to call out the National Guard. And then the militias would join in the Civil War, because the sequence of events would be something like this. Or at least he's predicting. So you would have the election was stolen from Democrats in their scenario. They would take the Democrats and would be up in arms, send in their BLM activists to tear down or burn down the cities in response to the stolen elections, in which case the militias and the military and the National Guard will be called in to suppress that and then putting up the curfew. That's the sequence of events that they were predicting was going to happen when they stole an election illegally from the American people. Who knows what would have happened? It could be something like that. It could be not something like that. But it certainly would not. That would be a point of anger for sure if the election was stolen from anyone in this election, but properly stolen, not in the way these guys were trying to do a takeover, an overthrow. I mean, we have not seen anything like this in. I don't know. It's just impossible. We haven't seen anything like this in democracy because it doesn't happen in democracies. This doesn't happen. You elect people.
This would have been worse than the American Civil War. The American Civil War was during a time when the states were actually quite a bit more politically separate from each other. And the people who led the military operations there all went to West Point. Yeah. They knew each other by and large, and they'd learned modern warfare tactics, and they were setting up. I mean, I don't have any love for the Confederacy, but they were setting up to be their own nation. They're like, we're gonna defend this peculiar institution of enslaving people as our economic engine, and we're leaving. And so we got no military conflict over that, and it was run like a more or less a conventional war at the time. And they were by professional soldiers who had conscription. And then when they lost, there was when the Confederacy lost, at Appomattox Courthouse, the unlawful but organized political government of the Confederate States of America gave up. And then Lincoln said, all right, we need Reconstruction, and we need to bring them back in as quickly as possible. This would have been so much worse than that. You're talking about propagandizing people who are on the phone with this Jason Sullivan character and saying, oh yeah, no, oh great. Once if I see on Facebook somebody that says Antifa, if I see 3 kids in black sweatshirts and somebody says Antifa's in your city at 9 o'clock, if anybody's out, shoot them. You know who would love that? Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
China would love that. Brazil would love that. They would love America to rip itself apart from the inside. And that is what that would have done.
A lot of states have done this. A lot of states have started introducing laws where if you shoot somebody outside, it's not considered murder if you're deputized as a law person. In other words, they're deputizing their entire public who had guns, which was mostly white people, to shoot whoever they want to in the name of the law. And that's already being passed in places like Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, right now. That's actually law. Why are they passing those laws? They're passing those laws in anticipation of needing them under these circumstances. I mean, that's what's really going on here.
Yeah, they were trying that in Missouri here at the beginning of the session. The law went down. It didn't go beyond committee, I don't even think. But they were saying that all murders must be presumed self-defense.
Yes. Why?
And I'm like, really? Like if a 41-year-old kills a 6-year-old, like we have to say, well, he was coming right at me, with his teddy bear. I mean, it didn't make sense. But in this context, it makes sense.
Yeah. Vadia Matri has a question for us on our hotline, and she's begs the question if that false flag actors ready to go to burn the cities down. It's a very legitimate question. And excuse me one second. Wait,
I think it was answered. What was the guy's name? John something. He was the young man who was both an Antifa guy in the summer. And in the summer protest, and then he also showed up at the Jan 6 invasion there.
NGO, it's named John NGO or something, or Jason, I can remember.
Jason, something. And he was the one who videotaped Ashley Babbitt's killing. So
the reality is, of course, they were. I mean, we did the coverage of. I remember that Portland attack that we covered about a year or so ago. And in that, there was 2 people that were killed in the street. And then a few days later, the assailant was also killed by police. Remember we did that story? It was kind of a dramatic story, one of the biggest stories in the run up to the elections in 2020. The understanding from our coverage during that story is that there were, in fact, crisis actors. A lot of the Antifa people, when they were, when we looked inside the Antifa organizations, they were, sort of professionally run, perhaps foreign run, false flag actors, really, that were designed to inflame situations. So if you wanted to create a situation leading up to an election where you had violence in cities, you would take these actors who were playing Antifa and have them confront our their MAGA people, and you'd have conflict. Of course, you'd have conflict, no doubt. You'd at least be able to create some sort of conflict. And the same thing happened in a couple of other places. A BLM as well is another interesting. Look at what happened in Kenosha, right when Rittenhouse was out there. Why was Rittenhouse out there when all these people were clashing with each other with his gun ready to shoot people? I mean, those are the kind of situations where you think this doesn't, in isolation, maybe you can understand it, but when you look at it as a trend, and where are they now? They're not out now. They were out only then.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think after George Floyd was killed, and you see the response to it, where there were protests, and then we had federal troops try and put that down. That was something Barr brought in. And today is an interesting news day because the United States Park Service, U.S. Park Police, and the U.S. Secret Service did a settlement with some of the protesters who were aggressed by Barr's federal troops that day, the identity of which we have yet to learn. Because one of the things that this settlement said is that the U.S. will not have any more officers out that aren't identified with name tags and whatnot. My personal theory is that, that Trump and Barr and all these co-conspirators created all those different events that summer to get the people used to the notion of a nameless federal force, just somebody with a gun saying, shut up, go inside, we're in control right now. And why? Because Antifa. Now, it turns out, I did a little quick search just to jog my memory. It was John Earl Sullivan was one of these, one of these supposed Antifa types who has a more complicated backstory, and he was in the invasion of the Capitol. So, was that, I mean, it seems like they realized they were going to lose to Joe Biden. So it's like, let's get the American people used to this. And you have events like the McCloskey couple down in downtown St. Louis in this very, very safe, gated community. But they come out with their guns, that they're pointing at each other with this terrible barrel control and whatnot. And, they were role modeling. This is what you do, guys. This is normal. Some 17-year-old with an assault rifle is going to just murder some people, and he's going to get off because that's look, and these people are all very convinced of themselves. Like, look, okay, you and your belief in the Constitution and democracy and the last 2,000 years of progress. Look, I know better than you, and so I'm just going to have to shoot you, and I'm sorry. And I mean, where I'm from, that's a rabid animal that you have to put down. So one have to be careful about that kind of talk, which these people very much not been very careful about. But I think a lot of the imagery that was created that summer was to raise up these, look, you need to look, this is just how this is going to happen. These people are going to, they're going to be upset that they can't, steal the election from you, and they just need to be shot, maybe by you or someone else, which is, nightmarish.
Let me also add to that, as you talk about all of this, it reminds me that it was Charles Bausman, a Russian agent, that was amongst the many people that was helping sort of ignite this movement of white nationalism and the sort of very aggressive, far extreme right wing, and Russian spy in Pennsylvania helping make all this happen. That just adds to what you were saying earlier. I bet you Putin would be very happy with this. It would not surprise me if a lot of these militias are funded directly or indirectly from Russian sources. We certainly know many of the white nationalist organizations were funded out of Russia. So that just adds more interesting layers to what is a very disturbing picture. We have running out of time, and we've just got one little bit left here from Jason Sullivan, and about 2/3 of the show is still to go. But we won't do it tonight. We'll just play this one last clip and see how he ends off this little clip. Again, this is a associate of Roger Stone talking to anti-vaxxers on December the 30th, or 31st, sorry.
When you want to get things done, when President Trump wants to get things done, he creates public pressure. I'm part of that public pressure. I'm one of the people that makes certain that it becomes viral, that everybody starts talking about it, okay? That people start yelling and spitting and fighting and kicking and screaming about it, okay? Then when that happens, then they have all of these hundreds of thousands of conversations taking place that proves that this is what the American people are talking about. This is what the American people want. And then he uses that, and has used that in many cases, for executive orders. Okay? I was called by Paula White to put pressure on Mitch McConnell because Mitch McConnell wasn't going to take the Prison Reform Act to the floor. He was going to kill it. She called me and said, put the pressure on him. No problem, Paula. She's a good friend of mine. We put a lot of pressure, and it was literally a day later that he caved, and he said, I'm taking the Prison Reform Act to the floor, okay? It was a miracle. That's how things get done. So you have to create leverage where you don't have it. And right now, we can do a lot of these things. I like the idea. Let's do the indictment, okay? Let's go through the process, but it's going to be a process. That's not going to be the Gordian knot solution, so to speak, but it can certainly be a hell of a nail in their coffin, especially if the process runs through, okay? But at the same time, there's got to be a multiple front strategy. And that multiple front strategy, I do think, is descend on the Capitol without question. Make those people feel it inside, okay? So they understand the people are breathing down their neck. And we've had it, and they've got it, and we've got to be perfectly clear about it. Now, I'm not inciting violence or any type of riots or anything like that, but we need to be loud. It needs to be like Jericho, okay? We need to shout and scream to where the walls fall down at Capitol Hill. That's what this optic needs to look like. And I can promise you, I can make that go so viral, so fast, across the globe. I know people. Trust me, okay?
Well, of course you could make it go viral. Anyone could make that go viral, Sherlock. I mean, that's not very, if you achieved that, it would be amazing. But let's, I keep laughing at all this because it is
he kept to his promise.
Yeah. He sure did. But the whole idea there of leverage, of creating leverage, of manipulating the population to create leverage, basically. We are going to, when you don't have it, just create it. So the public isn't upset about black violence. Well, create some black violence so people get upset about it. That's how you do it in Mr. Trump's universe. That's basically what he's saying. Oh, Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do the Prison Reform Act. Well, let's make him do the Prison Reform Act. who knows what kind of pressure he's talking about, but he sounds like he's talking about manipulated false events or false narratives flowing out of various places. That's certainly what it sounds like to me.
What it sounded like to me is pretty clear. He's like, look, the point is to get this message out there, to get Americans fighting, spitting, yelling. I mean, and he's like, I'm not trying to incite violence. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what the definition of that is. And you're a criminal, and you should be indicted, and you should be remanded to custody, and you should be put in prison. So I imagine it's complicated because of this conspiracy. So I'm not blaming the Department of Justice for not having done it yet. But now is a wonderful time because that's incitement of insurrection. And wow. Put these people in prison, right. All of them.
And this is one of the reasons that the Justice Department has expanded its investigation recently. This particular tape that Mr. Sullivan is heard saying all these things is one of the reasons they've expanded the investigation. So, and it's interesting. It dropped sort of in the middle of yesterday's hubbub about the terror attack in New York. So it didn't get very much coverage. But I certainly hope it gets more coverage from now. I mean, the stuff that this man is saying is absolutely proof. There's no doubt in my mind. This guy is saying what it is. He's saying it a week before it happens. It shows that there's premeditation. It shows that they had a plan. It shows that they knew exactly what they wanted to do and what the intended outcome was going to be. I mean, it doesn't leave up to anything, imagination.
And in this RICO conspiracy, because that's what it is when you have a criminal conspiracy that involves this many actors at different levels, they don't need to know each other. This is a RICO seditious conspiracy that involves Ginny Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
The wife of a sitting, for now, Supreme Court justice. Involves the Republican Attorneys General Association. It involves
this man, Mr. Michael Flynn. And his Ginny.
Right.
You know, by the way, Michael Flynn's brother, I was talking to on the phone yesterday because he wanted to be interviewed on Narrative. We'll see about that. But he tells me that he and Michael Flynn went home to the hotel after the speech by Donald Trump, and that he took a nap, and he believes that, Michael Flynn went to his hotel room, and that was the last time they'd heard from, that last time. That's basically all they did that day. Sorry, Joe, I don't believe you. I mean, what's going on? There was an insurrection happening. You went to bed? You had 2 Irish coffees and went to bed?
True treason is tiresome, but these are old men. I believe it.
Certainly Mr. Michael Flynn, I find it very hard because he's the inventor of this whole thing. Of course, we know Ali Alexander. He's already turning on his former associates, and he's turned state witness. But these other people are involved here too, like Mr. Ed Martin, the judicial crisis.
St. Louis's Ed Martin. Yeah, we recognize Ed. How you doing, Ed?
A couple of these people, like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk from Turning Point, and Ralph Reed. They get out the vote, dude. He might also be implicated in this expanded, investigation that's going on. And here's Lisa.
Conspiracy to shoot us if we stay out past 8 o'clock or whenever they tell us.
Exactly. Wow, Lisa Nelson, come on down from ALEC, the Koch brothers organization, and of course these Goombas all might be. All might be. All right. Well, that's the show for tonight. I only got even a third of the way through it. I had so much research done here, and you were going to enjoy all the research because it was going to take us all the way back. But
we just ended with like a call for America to go shopping for men's clothing, and just like we need better dressed villains or something.
We do. Let's take them off the screen. I can't stand looking at them at all anymore.
Thank you, Zev.
Oh, so much better. Look how dapper you are. Look at your nice outfit. I know you have to run. It's been a terrific show, and thanks to everyone for participating. Thank you to our patrons who tried out our new hotline. It works pretty well, and I hope you sign up to patreon.com/narrative where you can join in on the hotline conversation. It's great to have direct access to our patrons during the show so we can answer your questions. Meanwhile, thanks to you at home for being here tonight. We have maybe no show on Friday because it's Good Friday. So we'll be back. It's going to be a whole till Tuesday before we have to finish the show. There's so much good stuff here. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Eric Garland can be found at his podcast at Game Theory Today, but also at Eric Garland on Twitter. Anything else you want to share and say?
And in an unmarked bunker underneath the tennis court.
Oh, marked by the yellow circle, by the yellow outline, which I've
That's classified.
Yeah, that's classified. Just wanted to make sure that you knew I knew where it was if I needed to find you. And that is the show for me. I'm going to be here, probably still trying to write an article based on what we've just written, but maybe not here on Friday, but we will put on something on Friday night at 7 o'clock. It might be a repeat episode or something else lovely on the show to make sure that you're not having a lonely Friday night without us. And until we see you again, which will probably be live next Tuesday, have a good night, everybody. Narrative is made possible by viewers like you. Join today and support truly independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. That's patreon.com/narrative.